It's time to race in MotoGP. .3 kilometres in length then, 17 corners, 11 right, 6 left. This Mandalika International Street Circuit on the calendar for the first time 18 months ago. Super hot conditions coming up for the MotoGP riders, over 27 laps. The best race lap last year, Fabio Quartararo, that was of course in a wet Mandalika Grand Prix. We saw an all-time lap record set yesterday on pole position for Luca Marini, overtaking hot spots into turn 1, turn 10. This was in that wet Grand Prix last year, Fabio Quartararo and fellow Frenchman Joan Zarco into turn 16. Coming up next then, in MotoGP. 6 wins in the last 7 and looking unstoppable right now. New World Champs leader Jorge Martinez from Mandalika Maximum. After a first MotoGP pole and stunning sprint second on Super Saturday, Luca Marini looks to produce more on Lombok heroics. Ready to ride through the pain barrier again, Marco Bezzecchi is dreaming of an unlikely double podium from the 3rd row. And it's all about bouncing back for Pecco Bagnaia. The heat is on the reigning world champion to deliver a big result. He starts 13th. Good afternoon and welcome back to a wonderful Indonesia. The Pertamina Grand Prix of Indonesia coming up in MotoGP in just under 45 minutes time as the top Ducati duels of Jorge Martin and Pecco Bagnaia get set to dice it out over 27 laps, with Jorge Martin after a 4th successive Tissot sprint win yesterday on Super Saturday. For the first time in his MotoGP career, he's the leader of the Premier Class World Championship standings. Beautiful part of Indonesia, beautiful part of Asia. Looking forward to coming back to Lombok for many a good year, with the spectacular coastline surrounds this spectacular 4.3 kilometre, 2.67 miles Mandalika circuit. Could not really be any closer to the ocean, could we? Turquoise waters, glorious sunny day, the aerial displays in full swing as well, and a MotoGP title fight that has had another major plot twist, as for the first time since the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez at the end of April, Pecco Bagnaia has relinquished the World Championship lead. He comes into this afternoon's Pertamina Grand Prix of Indonesia 7 points behind Jorge Martin. It's Martin who has been flying high of late in the MotoGP World Championship. The 25-year-old Spaniard, not lower than 2nd in his last 7 races. That golden streak includes 6 victories. He is the man to beat again here this afternoon as we look at one of the undisputed heroes of this Indonesian Grand Prix weekend. In the company of Matt Burt, Lewis Suddaby in the commentary box, Simon Crayfart down in pit lane. The very much walking wounded Muni VR46 Ducati team with a fractured left collarbone in India, still recovering for Luca Marini, who took pole position and 2nd in the sprint. But this time last week, Marco Bezzecchi was prepping to go under the surgeon's knife on an operating table in Italy. Unthinkable, unimaginable that 7 days later he'd be lining up fighting for the podium in this Grand Prix of Indonesia. That's exactly where Marco Bezzecchi finds himself. Astonishing recovery. He fought his way through from 9th to 3rd in the sprint. What a shot that is. A proper bird's eye view of the Pertamina Mandalika circuit. Got to say, rather than me, not really one for the I don't mind flying, it's just flying in a straight line that I'm totally comfortable with. This is some show, isn't it, though? The Indonesian fans here being treated to a pre-race spectacle from the aerial display team. Lewis, this is going to be a big day, you feel, particularly for Pekka Bagnaia. 13th on the grid, only 8th place in yesterday's Tissot sprint, losing the World Championship lead. He's been at the dizzy heights at the top of the championship for some time. I'm getting dizzy, actually, just watching these breathtaking shots. Absolutely awesome pre-race coverage here. But the Martin Bagnaia duel has taken another big plot twist yesterday.
Well, much like the jet that we were on board with there, it's the MotoGP World Championship battle that has been turned upside down in recent times. Pekka Bagnaia, when he completed the sprint with a podium in Barcelona on the Saturday afternoon, was 66 points clear of Jorge Martin. He now trails him by 7, with, of course, the Indonesian Grand Prix this afternoon and then 5 more race weekends to go in 2023. So it's a tall order for Pekka Bagnaia from 13th on the grid here this afternoon. He's going to have to walk that tightrope between caution and aggression to try and maximise his points haul. Regaining the World Championship lead today might well be too steep a climb for Pekka Bagnaia, but this might be a day for just banking whatever points you can and then living to fight another day in Australia. No Pecco, no party, they say. Well, Pecco will certainly do his level best to have them partying in around 27 laps time, but he's got his work cut out from the 5th row.
These Indonesian fans had to be very patient to get the glimpse of the world's best riders. Some of them would not have even been born the last time we came to Indonesia before last year, 1997, a Sentul circuit in Jakarta. We were back last year for the first time in a quarter of a century at this magnificent Mandalika circuit. And they had to wait a little bit longer, didn't they? Of course, it was a lengthy rain delay last year, but no concerns at all about rain conditions. Do you want to be on the road to MotoGP programme, of course? You have until the 31st of December to be part of the 2024 Northern Talent Cup grid. Sign up, northerntalentcup.com, to start your road to MotoGP. That's one for some of the emerging young talents in Northern Europe to be keeping a very close eye, and get your applications in now then for the 2024 Northern Talent Cup Series. As Aleix Espargaro, Lewis, it feels yesterday like it was a real big blown opportunity for the factory of Aprilia, because this man, you have to say, in terms of race pace, has probably arguably been the strongest rider of this Indonesian Grand Prix weekend, but of course involved in a collision after a poor start yesterday with Brad Binder, a 3rd successive sprint DNF, and then Maverick Vinales did so much of the front running in that 13-lap sprint before he fell out of podium contention with fast fading grip. Aprilia looking to bounce back and show what they're made of in this afternoon's full-length Grand Prix, because yesterday fell well below expectations.
And this was where it all ended for Aleix Espargaro as he tried to recover from a poor start up the inside of Brad Binder, very dirty and dusty off the racing line, which was where Aleix Espargaro found himself on that dirty inside line into turn 16. The front just washing away and washing Brad Binder away into the runoff with him. Both of them out of contention. Brad Binder did later finish the sprint. KTM thanking Aleix Espargaro for his sportsmanship, as he was very quick to apologise and take full responsibility for that incident. But as you say, before the sprint began yesterday, I think many of us in the media centre here were asking the question, which Aprilia is going to win this one? In the end, neither of them did, as Jorge Martin took that crucial sprint victory. You do feel, though, over the longer distance here this afternoon, with 27 laps ahead of us, Aleix Espargaro has the pace and the longevity to win this Grand Prix, as long as he gets through the first lap unscathed.
As long as he makes a better start than what he did yesterday. Some clutch issues saw Aleix Espargaro lose the advantage of that hard-earned front row start, starting in P3, as he will do again this afternoon, but immediately slipped back down to 6th place. And it was in that desperation to quickly recover those lost places that he did go clattering into Brad Binder. Binder did remount and take the checker flag in that sprint in 19th place. This guy, well, for a number of weeks now, that pressure has been building and building and building. He looks ice cool, he looks composed, he looks relaxed, doesn't he? Even finding time to sign some autographs for the young fans here inside the paddock. A few photographs as well But no question, Lewis, the 26-year-old Italian firmly under the cosh right now, because, as you mentioned a few moments ago, what looked like a real healthy buffer of 66 points has just completely disappeared. And now we're going to really find out what the world champion is made of. Now that he is no longer the hunted, now he is the hunter, maybe that will be a position that he favours, because of course he did it so well last year, chasing down Fabio Quartararo, but without any question, he's got to stop this rot.
Yeah, it felt like being the chaser last year brought the best out of Pecco Bagnaia, and it might well be a situation now where the pressure within this World Championship battle starts to shift a little bit more onto the shoulders of Jorge Martin. Talking about pressure, Maverick Vinales was under plenty of it yesterday in the sprint as he encountered some serious rear tyre issues around about half distance in the Tissot sprint on Saturday afternoon, which saw him fall prey to the two Mini VR46 Ducatis of Luca Marini and Marco Bezzecchi, both riding through obvious pain and discomfort, but certainly putting that behind them to finish in second and third place respectively. From Maverick Vinales' point of view, fourth place fell below expectations, particularly given how well he started the sprint yesterday. He goes from second place on the grid, so Vinales will be hoping that what happened to him yesterday is not a repeat in this afternoon's 27-lap Grand Prix, where tyre life and tyre conservation could well be the deciding factor. Yeah,
Pecco Bagnaia had a deep discussion with his Michelin race engineer there. This was the news that came out from Michelin last night here in Mandalika. Sent to a media group, an official statement by Michelin. Michelin strongly recommends the riders to select medium or hard compound rear tyres for today's Grand Prix. That was, of course, after yesterday's 13-lap Tissot sprint, where a number of riders reported encountering some blistering issues with the soft rear tyre. There was always going to be an element of doubt in the scorching hot conditions whether the soft rear would go double the distance over 27 laps, but the clear recommendation from Michelin, who are on course for their own bit of history and a milestone day today, because they will, being the only tyre supplier in MotoGP, take their 500th Grand Prix victory here today. A story that started so memorably all the way back in 1973, when Jack Finley was the first ever Michelin rider. 1973 was a pretty good year.
For more reasons than one. The key word there, though, in that directive from Michelin is it's a recommendation, so it's not an instruction. You'd have to say it would be a serious gamble based on what we saw in the sprint yesterday if a rider did go for that soft rear tyre, but it hasn't been withdrawn completely from the allocation, but they have been strongly suggested and recommended to steer well clear of it.
Yesterday, then, only the second time this season that Pecco Bagnaia has missed the top six in the sprint. This guy was absolutely superb. Courage and skill off the scale, wasn't it, for Luca Marini? Pole and second in the sprint. It's going to be a long 27 laps, though, recovering from that left collarbone fracture. A long lap penalty as well coming his way. But it's all eyes on the championship chase and the struggles that Pecco Bagnaia is currently having. Let's get some thoughts from Ducati Lenovo team manager Davide Tardozzi, who joins Simon. Good afternoon, guys.
Yes, good afternoon. David, I normally come and ask you about rider performance in general, you know, what's coming up in the race, because you seem to know pretty much what's going on. I've got something slightly different to ask you today before we get to the grid, and that is, I noticed only Jorge Martin really made the 23 spec machine perform to expectations yesterday, and there might be nothing to it, but I also noticed that Luca Marini, Marco Bezzecchi, Fabio Di Giannantonio, which are the only 322 spec machines out there because Alex Marquez missing, they were quite exceptional. And you know how riders think. I'm sure they're wondering as well, is there something to this? Could the older spec for some reason work better at this circuit?
No, I think that who won as the 23 spec, so 23, we think that is slightly better, but it's even obvious that we give to our satellite team a very performing bike. So that's our strategy. We do this since a couple of years, and I think that it pays. Then up to the factory riders to be in front of them. But anyway, Martin yesterday did a good job, while today it will be a completely different race, because because for sure everybody will have the medium rear, and 27 laps here are very demanding. So we'll see who will manage in the good way the rear tire and his body.
Davide, thank you for your time as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, Davide Tardozzi. Thanks, Simon. Of course, yes, it's not only managing that rear tyre that's going to be a concern for Pecco Bagnaia and co. Of course, where he is on the middle of that fifth row of the grid, having to come through the pack, he's going to also have to bear in mind as well front tyre pressure and front tyre temperature, which has been an issue this season, particularly when you're in extreme hot conditions, which we undoubtedly have here today in Indonesia. That's going to be another dilemma, another headache that Bagnaia is going to have to contend with. We just saw there, didn't we, the reason why Luca Marini has to serve a long lap penalty here today is collision on the first corner of the first lap of the Tissot Sprint in Delhi a few weeks ago when he tagged the back of Marco Bezzecchi. So in this Grand Prix, starting from his first ever MotoGP pole, Marini does have the long lap. Likewise in there, Bastianini too.
Bastianini having to serve his long lap penalty because this is his first full-length Sunday Grand Prix since he caused chaos, it has to be said, at the first corner at the Catalan Grand Prix, which brought out the red flag. One of two incidents, of course, involving factory Ducati riders that brought out the red flags on that particular day. Well, of course, a lot of the talk going into this Grand Prix was dominated by a certain Repsol Honda rider, but the focus is on racing today for Marc Marquez. He goes from 8th place. To tell us what we can expect from him and Joan Mir, who lines up 19th. Let's hear from Repsol Honda's team manager Alberto Puig with Simon.
Yes, he is, and it's pretty warm down here, guys. Alberto, before we ask you about the race, the performance you expect, I would really like to know, don't often get to chat to you, what sort of rider, I'm sure you can't tell me who, but what sort of rider, what attributes are you looking for the rider for next year?
Well, it's the riders on the grid, we know all who they are. So it's not so easy to find a rider right now because basically all the riders are on contract. So it puts us in a little bit complicated situation. So yeah, we need to find a guy that can race for 1 year because this is what we need right now. But honestly speaking, at this moment we still could not define or conclude anything because we were basically concentrated on the weekend. So let's see what comes up and what we can do in the next days.
Thank you, Alberto. One other thing, as usual, would love to get your thoughts on this race going into it from your two riders' point of view.
Well, it's quite a fast track, not easy. And as you see, the temperature on track, it's unbelievable. It's 60 degrees. It's probably one of the most highest temperatures we had in the recent times. So not easy. I mean, yesterday, in the sprint race, Marc had the problem. He was not lucky, let's say, and Joan had this, let's say, starting from so behind is difficult. But I think if they have good start, they can keep a fairly good pace. And it will depend a lot on the tire, I think, today also, and the resistance of the race, because yesterday's race and today's race will be quite different.
Alberto, thank you for your time. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks to Alberto Puig, of course. Hoping to create some headlines on track here this afternoon on the two Repsol Honda riders. Fair to say Marc Marquez has certainly been causing a stir for a number of weeks off the circuit. And, of course, confirmation coming pre this Indonesian Grand Prix weekend. That's the startling news. It still feels like a shock to say it, doesn't it? Marc Marquez leaving Repsol Honda after 11 seasons next season and moving into this man's former camp. And there, Bastianini knows the strengths and merits of Gresini Racing and all Marquez lineup in the Italian squad next season. Just confirmation of what we've already told you. The second of two long laps to be served in this Grand Prix. And now Bastianini on his return to action after a 3-race injury layoff. Left hand and ankle fractures after he caused that pile-up at turn 1 in Catalonia. Another rider that will have to serve a long lap in the early part of this Mandalika tussle.
Both Enea Bastianini and Brad Binder, you saw there on screen, are wearing special one-off crash helmets this weekend. Enea Bastianini showing his support and love of Indonesia, of which we're all certainly in agreement with, and Brad Binder showing his support for the Springboks, who've got quite an important rugby match ahead of them later on today in the World Cup quarter-finals. So Brad Binder sharing his support, and he'll be hoping that it brings him a little bit more luck than it brought him yesterday, of course, when he was taken out of the sprint by Aleix Espargaro. Brad Binder, certainly one of a whole heap of riders who has podium potential here this afternoon.
And it was a happy Sunday morning as well for our good friend Simon Crafar, waking up to the news that the All Blacks, New Zealand, had prevailed in a pretty tight encounter with Ireland. Some of our Irish colleagues not seeing it quite the same, but yeah, the All Blacks into the World Cup rugby semi-final. We just saw there out in the ocean, surfs up. Now the atmosphere building up as well here as the riders sweep out of pit lane for the sighting lap in MotoGP. About 25 minutes away from lights out here in Mandalika as Pecco Bagnaia starts the pursuit of Jorge Martin then. This Grand Prix and then 5 more rounds to follow. Quickly we head from Asia down to Australia, always a favourite stopover, isn't it? Phillip Island, the Australian Grand Prix next weekend. And then we head back north, back into Asia, the Chang International Circuit, Thailand in Buriram. 2 hugely important triple headers, the biggest 5.5 race weekends coming up now for Jorge Martin in his Grand Prix career. So the Michelin slick tyre allocation, well, the rears, Michelin pushing the riders towards the medium and the hard. Davide Tarlozzi, Ducati team boss, saying that he expects every single ride to be running the medium rear tyre. Strong advice, almost obliged really, you feel, from Michelin that the soft rear tyre is parked for the weekend. While we were listening to Simon Crafar down there on the grid again, we saw Alex Marquez. Unfortunately, Alex, one of several walking wounded riders currently in MotoGP right now. Sadly though, having returned on Friday after the incredibly painful, what he initially thought was 3 broken ribs after his Q1 crash in India a few weeks ago. Alex did try and brave the pain here on Friday, but sadly it was just too much agony, and he withdrew, only to find out that he's actually got 4 broken ribs. So you can understand why Alex was finding it pretty difficult to tackle this Mandalika circuit here this weekend. He'll try and fight again next time out in Australia.
Free practice 1 was enough for Alex Marquez to get all the answers he needed about whether he was going to be able to compete long term in this Indonesian Grand Prix weekend. Alex Marquez hoping that another week takes him a week closer to full fitness as we ride on board with Pecco Bagnaia, who doesn't have as far to go as normal, does he, to get to his grid position of 13th on the grid, his lowest qualifying position since the Portuguese Grand Prix of last year, where of course he started right the way down at the back of the grid. He did rally in that particular race to come through all the way into the top 8, but top 8, top 6, is that the extent of what Bagnaia can really achieve here this afternoon? Just salvaging any points he can and perhaps hoping that something brings an end to Jorge Martin's incredible run of form. He is in the form of his Grand Prix career, make no mistake about that, chasing a 4th double of 2023. And if you go back to the San Marino Grand Prix weekend when Martin's charge began, he's only dropped 5 points for the 2nd place in India in that period. Every result either side of that, 6 of the last 7 sprint/Grand Prix results have been victories for Jorge Martin, which have taken him all the way to the top of the championship.
There's a rather unusual grid though coming up for this 27-lap Grand Prix of Indonesia. First time in 2023 it does not feature one of our top 3 men in this World Championship, Bagnaia, Martin or Betseki, as they go from 6th, 9th and 13th place respectively. The first time that one of our top trio have not started on the front row since the Japanese Grand Prix last year. A long, tough 27 laps in prospect for this man, Luca Marini. Alongside him on that front row though are the 2 factory Aprilias, who do look like they have a great opportunity here of potentially another 1-2, just as they did a few weeks ago at the Circuit de Barcelona in Catalunya. Let's hope we've not jinxed it. Let's hope that they do have a strong Mandalika Grand Prix here this weekend. Simon Crafar on the grid with their team manager Paolo Bonora.
I am. Paolo, it really felt like Aprilia and their riders didn't realise your potential yesterday. It looked so strong all weekend. One was a crash, the other a tyre dropping off, but different tyres today. Hopefully no crashes. Do you think you can realise it today?
Yes, yesterday we didn't achieve the result we expected. For sure, Aleix didn't do a good start, so he pushed too much in the first part of the race, and he crashed, unfortunately. Today we will use probably the medium tire on the rear, but we have to be focused also on the energy that we have to put in the tire, because it is a long race, it is a hot surface, so it's necessary to take care about the rear tire and also about the front one.
Thank you, Paolo. Best of luck.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks to Paolo Bonora. Here is your starting grid then for this 27-lap Grand Prix of Indonesia. Everybody, as we expected, although Ralph Fernandez there, I just wonder if that graphic is correct, where there's going to be some late change. On the graphic, though, at least, is running the soft rear tyre. Likewise, Taka Nakagami, that they were advised not to by Michelin. We'll keep a close eye on that, of course, because we are still about 20 minutes away from the start of this Grand Prix, so ample time for that to change before the start. But there's a few split decisions, Lewis, particularly on the front.
Yeah, the headline decisions on the front tyre. A lot of the riders on the grid are going for the soft front tyre. Brad Binder and Maverick Vinales are the two within the top 6 who've gone for the medium front tyre. The factory Ducatis of Enea Bastianini and, interestingly, Pecco Bagnaia have gone for the hard front tyre. So has Johan Zarco. Everyone else has gone for the medium front tyre. And as you mentioned, everyone has gone for the medium rear, with the exception at this stage of Ralph Fernandez and Taka Nakagami.
Well, a very special pre-race ceremony and show about to commence here in Indonesia. Right on cue to fill us in with all the details about what's going on in terms of tyre choice for this Mandalika Grand Prix. We can hear from Michelin Motorsport manager Piero Taramasso, who's with Simon.
Piero, there's been a lot of talk about tyres this weekend being so hot and so demanding, also in Moto2. Can you give us the latest information?
Yes, the more we ride, the more we understand that this track is really, really demanding. The track surface, there is a lot of grip, but there is also a lot of thermal exchange in between the tarmac and the tire, so the temperature goes up. So the tire works really at the limit, so it's very easy to get some blister. Anyway, yesterday with the soft on the rear, we managed to do the sprint, but today the choice will be medium on the rear. And from what I know, all the riders, they choose the rear medium because it's more resistant, the blistering. Maybe only 2 riders, they will gamble with a soft, but they will struggle a lot for sure. And then we have to see at the end of the race. Also, it depends how the riders, they manage the tire, how is the electronic, the traction control. So everything they can do to save the tire, it will help them to have the best performance at the end.
Thank you, Piero.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Piero Taramasso then. The medium rear tyre was the one that we expect to be the optimum pick for this Grand Prix. There is Enea Bastianini then, at the moment coming to the grid at least, with the hard front tyre. What about the KTM challenge? Brad Binder started ruled out of podium contention yesterday in the sprint with Alex Espargaro's mistake, and some post-sprint drama as well, with Jack Miller inadvertently crashing on his way back into the pit lane. They're going to be hoping for better fortunes, though, in the feature race here today. Let's get some thoughts from their team manager, Francesco Guidotti, who joins Simon.
Yes, he does. Francesco, can you give us your thoughts about each of your riders going into this race?
Yeah, will be a tough race with this condition. We know level of grip and temperature and everything is will be a long race. 27 laps. It's quite a long race, but confident after yesterday information from Jack's side, because at the end Brad get hurt from Malaysia, and the bike was without winglets and so on. We didn't get many information, but yeah, we still have to make the very last decision about rear tire. But yeah, confident to have a good race.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks to Francesco Guidotti. Thanks then Simon Crowfar. This is some pre-race spectacle, isn't it, going down here on the grid? As we mentioned, we received such a warm welcome back to Indonesia for the first time since 1997, 18 months ago when we first returned to Indonesia. 2022, right at the beginning of last season. Listen to the crowd. We don't have the rain shaman here today.
Not necessarily.
But we've got some show. Massive race coming up, isn't it? He's been banging the drum of late at the top of the MotoGP World Championship, Jorge Martin. How's he going to extend that 7-point lead over Pecco Bagnaia? Let's go and get some pre-race thoughts of Prima Pamela Ducati boss Gino Borsoi, who's with Simon.
Gino, another masterful display from Jorge, from 6 on the grid yesterday in the sprint. How would this race change, in your opinion?
Well, it's for sure it's another race. We have to see where we are from middle to end of the race, because it could be like India race where the problem on the physical side can happen again, because it's so hard weekend for all the riders, for sure so far. So let's see. And also we are not quite sure about the rear tire. We were a bit struggling yesterday with the rear tire, then we changed the idea today about the choice, and well, let's see. The feeling from the warm-up was so good. You felt so good on the bike, means when you felt so good on the bike, everything is under control.
Thank you, Gino. Best of luck.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Gino Borsoi, Jorge Martin's team boss, who actually, given what's at stake at the moment, what's on the line in the next hour or so, sounds pretty calm and relaxed. I'm sure inwardly he's feeling anything but, isn't he? It's going to be a hard act to follow, isn't it, for a race in the future, as we look at the dignitary in the background there, enjoying the pre-race build-up, the pre-race atmosphere. I'm told this is all part of it. It's a cultural performance known as the Guardian of Mandalika. There's Dornacio, Carmelo Espeleta, of course, who did so much work behind the scenes to bring MotoGP back to Indonesia. It's one of MotoGP's biggest markets, a huge and passionate fan base. And there's a really good crowd here today as well for this 15th round of the season. We'll quickly pop back down on the grid then and catch up with Simon again.
Just wanted to inform you something. You know how Piero was from Michelin was convinced everyone was going to go for the medium rear tyre, bar 2, but further back. And so I'm towards the front of the grid doing the interviews. Francesco Guidotti saying that they're still going to make the tyre decision, the rear tyre decision. I was waiting for him to say something about that, because he's not bluffing. There's people watching each other, meaning what are they really going to run? It's almost like everyone's pretended they're going for the medium rear tyre, but they suspect that someone will change last minute, so keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. We'll keep a very close eye on that. Some beautiful aerial shots of some of the over 18,000 islands that make up this beautiful Indonesia. Around 6,000 of them are inhabited. Lombok, certainly a holiday hotspot. A couple of hours on the ferry, I think, to nearby Bali. I know there's a few members of the paddock who are hanging around in Indonesia for a couple of days to enjoy some more sunshine and some more heat before we head down to what's going to be a chilly cows and a much cooler Phillip Island. There we just saw a glimpse there of Jack Miller, who's going to be looking for a big pre-race Phillip before he goes to Phillip Island, isn't he? The track where he had Turn 4 named after him 1 year ago. What an accolade, what an honour that was for Jack Miller and his family. Although, let's not forget, in the Grand Prix, it was the very same corner where he got absolutely clobbered by Alex Marquez and wiped out in his home race. Let's hope there's better luck going through his own corner next weekend in Oz for Jack.
Yeah, the initial look at the forecast suggests that he might find some sunshine, but not a lot of heat. Quickly down to the grid then to top Yamaha. Fabio Quartararo lines up 4th, Frankie Morbidelli 15th, team manager Maya Morgales with Simon.
Yes, Mayo, I have to say, Fabio's qualifying looked really impressive. Great job. And Frankie, although a long way further on the grid back, he was only 2/10 slower. It looked like a tough race. What are you expecting today?
It's very difficult to predict because, you know, we swap from the soft to the medium, and for most of the people, the rider is quite unknown, and we don't know if the tire will drop, if it won't drop. It's very difficult to have an idea how the race can end up. For sure, for Fabio, it's going to be much easier than for Franco. You know, starting from the second row for us is very important. I don't want to say that you can do, or you did already 50% of the race, but it's helped a lot. Yesterday he could fight also a bit with Martin, but then anyway we really suffer a big drop on the rear tire, and yeah, we really hope that the medium will support him until the end, and then it will be also tough physically because the air is so hot, and in this track it's difficult to breathe. You are always under the stress, and you can't have any relax. So I expect that for a few riders maybe the race will be even harder. But anyway, let's see how we can finish.
Mayo, thank you very much and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Mayo Maragall. We'll pause then now for the Indonesian national anthem.
Indonesia, tanah airku, tanah tumpah darahku. Di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi pandu ibuku. Indonesia kebangsaanku, bangsa dan tanah airku. Marilah kita berseru, Indonesia bersatu. Hiduplah tanahku, hiduplah negeriku, bangsaku, rakyatku semuanya. Bangunlah jiwanya, bangunlah badannya untuk Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang ku cinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang ku cinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya.
Enough to send a tingle down your spine. Putri Ariani with the rendition of the Indonesian national anthem as the atmosphere continues to build. They love their MotoGP here in Indonesia, and that is one of the masters of understatement. And we are now just 7 minutes away from an Indonesian Grand Prix which is certain to produce high drama, and the stakes continue to lift with the World Championship lead on the line.
7 minutes away from the start, 7 points between Martin and Bagnaia at the top of the championship. Last year's Mandalika race winner in the wet condition, of course, Miguel Oliveira, now on board the Crypto Data RNF Aprilia. Let's get some thoughts from his team manager, Wilco Zielenberg, who joins Simon.
Wilco, can you give us an idea how Raul and Miguel feeling going into this one?
I have no idea about the girl, but Raul feels very well.
Right, Raul, but yeah, there must be some concerns on your side.
Yes, of course. It's a very long race, very demanding, of course, of the tires. So clearly the tire choice is very tricky because yeah, the front is everywhere and always on the limit. So it doesn't matter which tire, but it's very tricky conditions. The rear, especially the soft, gives quite some grip, but we are not sure if it lasts the race. So I think we have mixed feelings. They decide at the last moments. I'm not going to tell you which one we have. Actually, I don't know at the moment because they put it in when I was not there. So that's a good answer, I think. And but I think it's for the whole grid a little bit similar. So everything is a little bit of a guess.
Thank you, Wilco.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks to Wilco Zielenberg. There are some really, really big decisions to be made, aren't there, in terms of that rear tyre choice. 27 punishing laps for the bikes and the body, and particular for the tyres. We did see in the earlier Moto2 race that there's going to be, well, there were some blistering issues late on as we continue to get these jaw-dropping aerial shots over this Pertamina Mandalika circuit. What a vantage point that is, the proper bird's eye view, looking down on a grid that at the moment is ramped full of tension. Bagnaia's worst grid position since the 2022 Portuguese Grand Prix. Yesterday, only the second time he missed the top 6 in the sprint, going from the lowly 13th place on the grid. Last year he struggled in the rain conditions here in Mandalika, 15th from 6, over 35 seconds from the victory. He'll be hoping that history doesn't repeat itself in the full dry race here today, but he has it all on, doesn't he, to try and break the momentum of the Martinator, who for the first time in his MotoGP career sits at the top of the MotoGP World Championship. He said right now he's living the dream. It's been a fairy tale season for Jorge Martin and the Prima Prama Ducati team as they chased history. Never in the modern four-stroke MotoGP era has an independent team rider captured the crown. But that is now, is it Jorge Martin's destiny? Is that how it's going to pan out and unfold as we get set for the most important phase of the season without any question? 6 races, 6 rounds in 7 weeks. And now the pressure is on this man to respond, this man to retaliate, to somehow find a way to solve what right now seems to be the toughest challenge in Grand Prix racing. How do you beat Jorge Martin?
Well, for Pecco Bagnaia, beating Jorge Martin might not be his #1 priority today. It will be just getting as high up the field as possible. The start will be particularly important for Pecco because yesterday, following the completion of the first lap, he did not make a single on-track overtake. It was only the crash from Marc Marquez and the collision between Aleix Espargaro and Brad Binder that promoted Pecco Bagnaia into the points. He says he's going to have to be more aggressive here this afternoon, but as we saw with Espargaro and Binder yesterday, overtaking and going offline is much easier said than done.
Yeah, overtaking in Mandalika is fraught with danger. There's a very narrow optimum racing line. Simon Crafard just reporting from down on the grid then. He has spotted Aprilia who did think about maybe gambling, maybe rolling the dice. Of course, they're not in the championship fight. And Aleix Espargaro then on the front row, who's had great race pace all weekend, apparently has switched over to Michelin's soft rear tyre. Likewise, 2022 Mandalika winner Miguel Oliveira. There you can see on the screen that Aleix Espargaro will take the punt. He will gamble on the soft rear tyre. The 2 factory Aprilias on the front row of the grid, Aleix Espargaro and Maverick Viñales. But he's battered, he's bruised, but he was brilliant in qualifying yesterday. A first ever MotoGP pole position for Muni VR46 Ducati rider Luca Marini. He was second in the sprint. More high drama, more high pressure coming your way here next in Mandalika.